Alright, we should be good to go. Welcome back, everyone, to yet another Moonshire Monday. I'm very, very proud that still we have not missed a single one. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to give the chat a few minutes to catch up while everything propagates and gets ready. Lots of folks in the chat already, though. I'm seeing Wolf and Shawarma and Nick. Hello. Thank you so much for being here. Give me one moment while I still get set up. Today's streaming setup is much different, or I shouldn't say much different, but it's very elaborate because I've been experimenting a lot with recording video while streaming. So this stream, I have the IRL footage being recorded by a different computer, and then it's sending that footage over to like this computer that I'm on right now, and they're both independently recording footage, so I'm gonna be able to record like this full stream while also recording the like video stuff. So a lot of work going into that, and hopefully it doesn't cause any problems, because this is the weird thing. I was worried that recording the stream while streaming it would cause problems, but I think that it's actually optimized pretty nicely. But lots of folks in the chat already. Thank you so much for being here again to Wolf, Shawarma, Nick, Theater34, DeReal Danny, Ol, and Adele. Hi, Kyle in chat. Was nice to see you in that Juniper video. Yes, thank you for watching that. The Juniper video came out and turned out really, really nice. She did an amazing job with that. Go check out Juniper Dev if you have not. I was in her latest video. Been researching your Lua training videos again. It's awesome to watch again. Now I know much more. Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I'm a big fan of those. And actually, this week I'm going to put out a shader video. And I'm gonna go ahead and promise that, because I really want to do that. Over the past few streams, I had been working on shaders, and I made a lot of progress with that. And I think I have a lot of things to share. Or at the very least, I worked with the new shader code to get this set up. This is the old shader code. Shader. So I wrote this new shader code, and I think that there's a lot of valuable information in here that is hard to find anywhere else. Because that's the thing about shaders, is they're complex, but there's not very many resources on the line to learn about them. Especially not with Love2D. It's very, very limited. Yeah, shaders, they were very arcane to me. Yeah, I'm with you. Also, I'm noticing that there's a bit of a delay between my chat and the one above me. Oh no, okay. That was weird. Did you guys notice that? There was like a very small moment where some of the messages got out of order, like in the chat above me. That was strange. I try to keep an eye on any bugs, because if you weren't aware, the chat that's displayed above my head is a custom program that I wrote myself. And like, I freak out whenever it has bugs. Do I have to use OpenGL things for your shaders? Yeah, in Love2D, it leverages GLSL, but it's like a slightly modified version of GLSL. That's what I'm kind of worried about this video I'm going to make, is that it's going to be a shader video, and ideally I would make this shader video generic, where anyone, even non-Love2D users, would be able to interact with it. And I think that they still can, but it does drive me nuts that this GLSL code is very slightly different than GLSL code. This is modified GLSL, from what I understand, and I'm not even sure what the differences are. I'll ask an AI real quick. What are the differences between GLSL and the modified GLSL for Love2D? So we'll see what that says. It's a modified subset. So in standard GLSL, you write built-in variables like that. In Love GLSL, you define special functions instead. This doesn't sound like it's different. Uses sampler 2D and texture 2D uses alias image instead of... Oh, okay, that is different. Version and compatibility. Okay, so this one is actually a different wording. Like if you put this code in front of someone that normally works with GLSL, this would not look right to them, as far as I know, because it uses like this image alias. Yeah, this Texil thing, this is made up for Love2D. I'm sorry that the text is small. I wish I don't think I can make it bigger. which this is just GPT-5. Standard GLSL version, no version declaration needed. That's not that big of a deal. All that I'm worried about is small differences where if someone is watching my tutorial about shaders, I would worry about them seeing one of these like things. Like here it says Texel text, like this line here, I think this is Love 2D specific. Based on what the AI said, I think this is Love 2D specific. Now, that could be wrong. It's very, very possible that like this statement here about Texel being a reserved word for Love 2D, maybe this is a mistake, but I don't really know what else to go on. Shaders are scary, they definitely are. Kyle, can I ask you some questions? Absolutely, yeah, definitely. How do you go about making your art? I'm struggling finding and making environment art that looks good and fits. Well, the truth is, I didn't start with my own art. I actually started with open source assets, because if you go back through the devlogs, or some of the videos before the devlogs even, it was a lot of videos using the ARM 1998 asset packs. I'm going to go ahead and pull it up, because I really do like that asset pack. ARM 1998 open game art. Let me see if I can find it, because there's this one like really popular asset pack that he has. Yeah, it's this one. So this asset pack is what the game started with, and if you go to the Legend of Lua repo on GitHub, where I have the early code for this game, a lot of the assets are derived from this asset pack. This is a very good one. It's public domain, which is a very nice and open license. And I think it has like what the heck? Why is this so long? It's this like giant collections thing. 728 favorites. I wanted to see where it shows the number of downloads. Oh my God, look at this. That is 156,000 downloads. So this asset pack has been downloaded 156,000 times. That is amazing. So what my suggestion is look through open source or paid, or commission someone to get yourself started. Find a baseline. And once you do that, you'll start experimenting with different styles and different, like, you'll notice that even in this image here, you'll find certain aspects of this pack that you like and certain aspects that you don't. For example, for me, I was a big fan of any sprites that had really thick black outlines, like the house, or I think the trees had that too. And I didn't like the stuff that had no outlines, like the water, or the edges of the cliffs, I think. So it was kind of like a pick and choose, where I noticed that some of the assets I liked, some of it I didn't. So then I started to modify it, because you can modify this. This is public domain. You can modify these assets to fit whatever you want. You could even color swap things. You could do anything to kind of adjust it to match what you're going for. And that's how I established my style, is that it started in one place and then it evolved in different, because I utilize, like, at this point, dozens of different asset packs, not just this one. And it's become like a conglomeration of all of them, but also my style has edited every single one too. So it's a bit of a big thing. Did I solve the shader issue of last time? Yes, let's go through that. But let me read through chat. I went into a trance for a moment there. I've definitely seen this asset pack before. I'm not a game dev. Yeah, I know it's a common one, and it's honestly it's a really good one too. If you look at the Love 2D Beginner's Guide to Shaders webpage, you will see that Texel is the Love 2D version of Texture 2D from standard GLSL shader language. Gotcha, that makes sense. And that's what that kind of frustrates me, because I do wish that all of this code was truly standard. Holy moly, am I late to the party? No, not at all. Is this daylight savings? Is all that happened. So someone was asking about the shader issue that we were talking about last time. That happened in render, and I did solve it, sort of. It's more that I came to terms with what I had to do, because the issue came from right here. Okay, so the issue that we were discussing last time is that in the game you have the different light sources, and actually let me do this, because I can there we go. So you can see the light sources very clearly right now. And the way that the light sources work is they belong as child instances of each of these objects. So like obviously it doesn't make sense that the anvil or this telescope would have a light source, but this is just testing. So this telescope has a light source, and this anvil has a light source. And the way that that works is that the prop has a dot light property. So the prop is given a dot light. And since it has a dot light property, during rendering, it looks through, it sees, does the object have a dot light property? And if it does, then it's going to cue that light to be rendered or to like be processed. So essentially, whenever any object in the game gets drawn, it's going to check and see, does that object have a light? And if it does, we're going to draw that light. Now, the conundrum that I came into last time is what happens when the light is attached to a child instance of a child instance. In this case, I had this fire. The fire has a light source, but the fire is attached to the weapon, and the weapon is attached to the player. So that's like a long line of child instances that lead to the light source. And that was a problem because here it's saying if object.light, and in like the player's case, the player doesn't have a light source. The player does not have a dot light property. Instead, the player has a dot weapon, and then the dot weapon has a dot fire, and then the dot fire has a dot light. Or it's not a dot fire, it's a dot effect now. So that long line of inheritance led to some annoying issues where I felt like I had to have some manual checks for those like nested instances along heritage, along family tree. Exactly, that's exactly what it was. And people were suggesting recursion, but I didn't quite understand to what extent, because my goal was that I would write a solution where I did not have to account for any exceptions. I thought that I could write some code where I could just blanketly find all the lights, but what I decided is that it is not possible to do that in a performant way. Instead, I have to account for all of the instances where there will be child lights. I don't think that there's a way around that besides actually accounting for that. So what I did is if there is an object that can have child lights, like a weapon can have child lights, or actually an object can have a weapon, and so what it's doing here, it's recursively calling this find lights function. You pass in an object, it checks to see does that object have a light, and if it does, it cues the light, it readies the light to be rendered. But also if the object has a weapon, then it's going to check the weapon for lights. It passes object weapon into this find lights function so that it recursively calls itself and then checks does the weapon have a dot light, and if the weapon has a dot light, then it'll add that dot light to the queue. But again, weapon doesn't have a dot light, it's the dot effect. So the object dot effect, the weapon dot effect here, it's going to try and find lights on that, and that's where it finally finds it. So it's like this recursive list where it's finding the specific, singletons could help here. That's essentially what this is. And when you say singleton, I think you're referring to how certain objects are made from a factory. I'm going to try and find a good example. I think Hitbox is an example of this. So Hitbox is an example of this where I have like this Hitbox new. Hitbox is the class, and then Hitbox new creates a new instance. So this is the actual like singleton object that gets created whenever you create a Hitbox, and then it just adjusts all the properties of it there. And you're right that a singleton could help, but it only helps so much. This is a singleton, and this is a singleton. There's so many different singletons. The problem with what I'm experiencing right now with this like nested light source tree is that the player itself is a singleton, but the weapon itself is a singleton, and then the fire itself is a singleton. So like we have to still connect all these things together, and then which I did. You can create a singleton that incorporates all the different singletons, and then that's how we have this whole nested structure that ends up finding all the lights. And also I'm realizing that I am speaking very, very fast, so I'm gonna chill out. Thank you all for bearing with me while I went on my really long rant. What's self used for? Self is a little trick that Lua offers. Whenever you write functions like this, where you have this colon syntax, self refers to this object here. So whenever you're reading Lua code, if you ever see the word self, you can trace back what does self mean, go back and find the function call, and whatever is to the left of the colons. Self is render. And more specifically, it's the specific instance of render. That's what I like most about it, is that when you say render, this does mean the same thing. You could do this, and that would be the same. But when you say self, using this function syntax, it does explicitly get the reference to whatever render instance, so I do always like that. Programmers always talk fast for non-programmers. I think it's, in general, people who are passionate and knowledgeable about something specific tend to talk really fast because they talk about it all the time. So much time and talent involved. Programming physics, having the art, and animated having the music. It's so much work, and sometimes it doesn't pay all the effort. It's so cruel. You are absolutely right. It definitely doesn't pay the effort. Effort doesn't pay off. That is a truth of life, is that we can put in effort, but there might not always be fruits of that effort. It's really important to identify where you are able to get returns on your investments and that sort of thing. But at the same time, I make games for fun. I think that it's important to go into any sort of hobby or skill with the intention of enjoying it, of building up your skill set. If you're going into it with the intention of, I need to make games so that I can make money, I think that's not going to work out, because like you said, there's so much stuff that goes into it. It's a mastery of so many different skills, and getting that payoff, like I don't know when or how that'll happen. So I'm with you that it's a really, really hard process, but I think that this shift in mindset is important, where it's all about just like enjoying it rather than trying to make it into a business. It's the same with if you were a musician or an artist. If you were a musician and you were learning how to play and get better at your music, I think it would be very frustrating if you were going into it with the mindset of, oh, I need to make money with this. Like, I have this guitar, I have this piano, and I need to make money with this. I think that it would be very unfun. I think it would be a lot more fun to go into it thinking, I want to improve my piano playing skills and get really good at this skill so that I can produce really, really good stuff. And then at some point, you're going to be really good to the point where people will want to pay you for your work. And that's what I'm kind of aiming towards. I'm not quite there yet. And maybe I won't get there. Money and games is something that I'm starting to have a little bit different. I think it's a hard subject to breach. I think that it's a goal for a lot of people to make money off of games and make it into a livelihood. But that is something that I'm seeing harder and harder to achieve every day. I'm able to achieve it because I supplemented it from a different career. But making money off of games, I've never made money off of games. I make money off of making videos about making games. If you chase money as a dev, you will be miserable. I think that's probably true. I think when you chase money in general, and especially in a creative field, is that in a creative field, we're producing art, in a sense. You could argue if games are art or not, but we're creating entertainment. We're creating entertainment. Do you feel that a game developer is the ultimate AI person? Basically, after learning so much, you can understand so much about AI and how it works. I'm not quite sure. Because AI is... That means many things to different people, because you have AI in games, like you have the AI of enemies, like artificial intelligence of how things behave in a game. You could call that AI. Is the AI from Mario 64, like the Goombas, is that the AI that we're talking about? Maybe. Or maybe we're talking about generative AI, where it's the AI that can write stories, it can create music, and it can create realistic videos that's indistinguishable to what a human can create. That's existential. I don't know what the answer is in terms of what you were asking, really. What you're saying, ultimate AI person? I think that a game developer has the potential to use AI the most, just because AI can be used in so many different aspects. But that also means a game developer has a lot of risk of like exposing their project to like slop. You know, there's a problem with AI where a lot of AI produced stuff is not good. And if a person relies on not good stuff, they're going to produce not good stuff. So a developer is only as good as what they're able to produce. If the AI stuff is not producing good content, then the developer is not going to be able to produce content that's better than that. I'm saying I'm trying so hard not to hate AI right now. AI is definitely a controversial topic. I get that. I think it's an inevitable one, though, is the scary part. And My opinions on it have shifted a lot, especially in the past like year. It's because my existential moment for me is that my one and only thing is coding. I love coding. I've been coding my whole life. I went to college for coding. My career was in coding. I've been coding my whole life, and I feel like I mastered it. I became really, really good at it. But now we have these AI agents, and I was so skeptical, man. For the longest time, and for a while, I was right. I was skeptical of these because they weren't producing very good stuff. The stuff that AI agents could produce and code for a while wasn't very good, or it was very situational, or I wasn't able to get much value out of it. But within the past year, I have noticed a very big shift in quality and how it's able to do things. Just because, let's say that I had this code base here with these hundreds of files, literally hundreds of files, and I'm experiencing a problem somewhere. You can just ask the AI to look through all the files and find the problem, find the typo, it can debug any problem. If you get an error, you can just plug it in. And I'm not saying that's good, or I think that AI is going to be bad because it's going to be so much of a crutch for people. It's going to prevent them from learning. It's going to solve challenges for them, and so it's going to prevent them from actually gaining that experience. But at the same time, I have to acknowledge that it's useful, because I type prompts into this thing and it's able to do things that I'm just blown away at. I can't believe at how well it's able to understand every file, and it's like it's able to read my own mind. It's disturbing. So what I was saying is that I coded my whole life. I spent my whole life absolutely mastering the skill of coding. And I put all this work in, all this practice, all this experience, all these years of working on the job. And then this dumb little computer comes along and it's as good as I am. Or at least questionable. This agent comes along and it can solve problems faster than I can. And it can solve certain problems that I can't. And supplemented with my own abilities, it's actually a valuable tool. And someone earlier said, trying so hard not to hate AI. I that's the thing, is that it's controversial because this is infringing on people's livelihoods. AI is controversial because we need jobs to pay our bills, and the existence of tools like this makes jobs less available. I think that there's actually going to be a crisis with coding where companies are going to be less inclined to hire new grads from college, because I don't want to admit it, but this AI agent is more talented than a new grad out of college. But a new grad out of college might be able to utilize this agent, and then everyone wins is the thing. That sucks, I know. I'm talking about this not as if I want this to happen. Dayjob Cause will catch the replay. Awesome, thank you for being here, Old School Geek. I really do appreciate your support. The bar is higher, that's all. The bar is higher. That is definitely for sure. My controversial take is that AI lowers the barrier of entry to everything. It definitely does. It definitely does. That's why I sympathize a lot with artists. Artists are experiencing this now too. How I was just talking about how I spent my whole life mastering coding, and then this computer comes along and it can do it better than me. That sucks. And artists are experiencing something similar, where they spend their whole lives mastering this skill. That is something that most people can't even come close to mastering. They become so good at drawing and so good at art, and then this dumb little computer comes along and it's able to produce hyper-realistic people better than what a human could do. What's the game engine? Love 2D. Your coding mastery isn't gone to waste. You can utilize AI coding much better than most. Yes, you are absolutely right. And that's kind of why is, I say existential as if I feel like I've lost something, but really the shift has changed. You can basically have employees for free. I hate phrasing it that way, but that's kind of what it feels like, because you can speak to this agent as if it's a person, and it kind of behaves that way. Okay, here's an example. Let's go ahead and code something with the agent so I can show you how, like, you barely have to explain anything and it can kind of just figure it out. So in this game, this is something that I was going to do after stream, but I'll go ahead and do it now because I think that the AI agent will be able to figure it out. So in this game, oh come on, I hate the light sources. I want to turn off the lights. 1 second, I want to try and fix that. Biome. I think I screwed up the dark value somewhere. Yeah, I did. Wait. What's going on? Whenever I change... This is so weird. Whenever I change scenes, the darkness... Oh, I see. I accidentally, Okay, I figured it out. Oh my gosh, it's still doing it. What's going on? I'm really frustrated because I'm trying to get this stupid vignette to go away. Alpha 0.5? I need to figure out why it's doing that. That's really obnoxious. Okay. The problem is that it's resetting this alpha. To do sync biome darkness with vignette because there's a desync. That's a problem. Okay, sorry about that. What I wanted to do is I have these boxes. There's no collisions, by the way. Like, all the collisions are weird. But you'll notice that when I hit the boxes, the box moves, but the player just moves with it. Okay? And it explodes. It looks really weird. What I want the AI to do is I want to make it so that when the player attacks something, the player knocks himself back. So like a recoil. When the player hits a wall, there's a recoil and the player gets bounced back slightly. Okay? So that's what I want to do. So let's go over to player attack, because it's definitely gonna happen in here. And how this works is you just explain the problem in English to this thing, and it's going to read through all your files and figure out what the problem is. So the player is able to attack, and it spawns a hitbox via the effect. Currently the hitbox applies a knockback to the thing that it hits, such as a prop, but I also want the player's attack to recoil, meaning the player receives some of that knockback in the opposite direction. We'll say 50% of the knockback in the opposite direction. For now, apply this logic to walls and props. Okay, so we're gonna see what happens. What game engine is used? Love2D. You can make it easier by adding relevant files. Yeah, I noticed that they've been adding a lot more of stuff here. You can also highlight a specific line and then explain in words when you have it highlighted. Be honest, how effective are Moonshire Mondays for Moonshire Development Relay? They are not effective at all. They are strictly for fun and for communicating with the audience. But, you know, one thing that they are good for is that they get me talking, and they get me, like, they get my brain running. You guys, like, giving me feedback and asking me questions, it gets me talking about things that sometimes I don't talk about very often, and sometimes that, like, opens my mind to new ideas that I wouldn't have thought about normally. So that's the main benefit I get out of it. But in terms of actual productivity, it's not very good. So, I'll say do not try to run. I'll run it myself. Thank you. So then it tells you all the stuff that it changed. Modified hitbox.lua. So actually, let's go through everything that the code changed, because here in hitbox.lua, this is where it actually collides with a different collider. So we can see mark as hit to prevent hitting again. That makes sense. And look, it actually has, this is where it has the knockback force, because currently you were able to knock back things, but now it says apply recoil to player for walls and props. Should recoil false, has tag wall prop. Okay, because this is actually really cool. It checks which tags are available and should recoil. This is amazing. And self.player. Okay, so the hitbox also has a reference to self.player, which is really helpful. I think this is going to work right away, and it only needed to change 2 files because vignette and biome were changed by me. Oh, it did pass player for... Okay, so it actually did this itself. I was just commenting on how it has a reference to its own player, but it looks like it handled that. That makes sense. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. I think it's gonna work. Here we are, and then let's go ahead and smack this. Whoa! It works. It definitely got screwed up though. Actually, I know why it got screwed up. Whoa! That is awesome. That's exactly what I wanted. That's really awesome. It worked immediately. Okay, so one thing though is that it knocks you back really far. That might be okay though. The reason it's knocking back so far is because the attack itself has a really hard knockback. So let's go to effect. So that player attack that I was just showing, why don't the walls have hitbox? Just because I didn't draw them in. So let's go to effects punch, knockback 60. So I can like change this to 30. And then now if I go and hit one of these things, it's going to knock the logs back less far, and the players knock back less. Well, that didn't do anything now. That's like they like overdid it. How did it calculate this? That actually didn't feel right. Apply 50% recoil in opposite direction. Maybe it's actually okay. How did you get rid of the sprite jittering in general for pixel art? I never really did, honestly, because it is hard to see. But the reason you can't see it is because it's... how do I explain this? I can see it because on my 4K monitor that I have in front of me, I can see every pixel, and I can see the pixels juddering as the player comes to a stop. So when the player comes to a stop, the player slowly stops to a decimal point direction, a decimal point like value, and that causes the pixels to jitter a little bit. But from your guys' perspective, in this like 1080p video where it's squished down and compressed, I don't think it's possible for you guys to see the pixel jittering. And I should probably play more pixel art games to see if they also have the same pixel art jittering, because I don't think there's a way around it. Am I using a plugin for physics on this? No, I wrote my own. I wrote my own physics.lua, and physics.lua is a wrapper that is very similar. So I've had this discussion on stream as well. There's this library called Windfield. I have a tutorial on my channel for Windfield, and the problem with Windfield is that it's outdated. It hasn't been updated for a long time. It still works currently, but it's going to be outdated, and with Love 12, it's probably going to break. So I don't know if I recommend people use Windfield, but I don't... You have to use something. Like, I wrote this physics wrapper because using physics on its own is so complex and annoying. I think anyone using physics in Love 2D would have to write their own wrapper that's very similar to what I wrote here, if they want to use it in an efficient way. So that makes me really wish that there was that Windfield was just updated. So what I'm getting at is I think that I'm going to open source this file at some point once it's a bit more solid. Do I think that someone from 0 in their 30s could start programming for gaming? Oh, totally. Having only 2 hours per day for work, just for fun, really, what would that add skills for life? Yes, it definitely would, because I'm sure in your mind, as you're like going about your day and you have game ideas, you have different thoughts, you have different story ideas that you want to tell. Programming is not as hard as you might think. And also, the programming that I'm doing here looks very intimidating, but there is programming out there that is not intimidating at all. I always recommend Game Maker for newcomers. That's what I used when I was just a young kid, actually. I keep the book on my desk, but I got this book when I was a kid. It teaches you how to use Game Maker, and Game Maker is still really popular today. What I like about Game Maker is that it's like a drag and drop coding language. You don't actually type code like this. Let me pull up Game Maker. Let's see if it shows how Game Maker works. What I like about it is, I wanted to show some examples of how things look in it. Let me find some like better examples, because I probably should have just pulled up like a YouTube video. Okay, how about this? I'll pull up a YouTube video of what Game Maker looks like, so then I can talk over it. But what makes Game Maker so nice is that it's a drag and drop coding language.
Hey, friend.
Whoa. Okay, I watched this channel before. So what I like about Game Maker is it's a drag and drop language. Hopefully they show it. And lots of games were made with it. God. I'm getting really frustrated. I'm very annoyed. I'm sorry. I'm trying to explain my point, but these videos aren't explaining it. How about we show up my Game Maker Crab videos? That's the perfect answer. Also, a lot of people subscribe to the Game Maker Crab channel after I posted that video. But the point of me talking about Game Maker is because the way you code stuff is, it's all visual. If you look at what I'm doing here, it's like you click on all these little buttons and they're really easy to understand. You drag these different nodes. In this case, it looks like I'm dragging a score node and it says I'm setting the score to something. It's very, very approachable. It's very approachable. But the thing is, all of these concepts that you would use in a drag and drop format like this is still very similar to what coding in something like this is like. This just looks more intimidating compared to something like this, where you are literally dragging and dropping to build stuff, and it says like, this is test score. Is the value equal, larger than? It's like plain English. And this is something that I worked on 16 years ago, so I would have been like 12 or something, like, or 13 or something. And even for someone in their 30s, I think that Game Maker today is an amazing tool to get started with because it's so approachable. You can get started by drawing your own sprites, making things move around, and there are professional real games that have been made with Game Maker. They're like Undertale was made with Game Maker, was made with this. Something like Hyper Light Drifter was made with this too. Remember to hydrate, thank you. Visual programming will be replaced by vibe coding. Watch, that's just an interesting idea. That very well could be. It's possible that the way things are coded is going to be very different in 20 years. Who knows? Because like, you look at this code here, it looks very intimidating, but maybe going back to a system like this is more, it's just better. But I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't mean to say that everyone should start with Game Maker. There are lots of options. Game Maker, I think, is a good one just because it's very approachable. Scratch is another very approachable option. And then you have the very common, like, mainstream options like Godot. Godot is very common and very good. Unity is very good and very common. And all of them are approachable. Essentially, what I'm getting at is that if I could figure this out when I was a kid, you could definitely figure it out as an adult, even if you're coming from zero. I get that. I totally watched these when I was a kid. I mean, if that's real, that's amazing. I hope so. I'm stuck with hump, camera, bump, physics, STI libraries. I can't get collisions and map to draw properly when using camera. I know getting all those things to work together is a little bit complex, but just make sure that when you're drawing, you know when to draw within the bounds of the camera and who and when not to, because sometimes you don't want to draw within the bounds of the camera. Your first game was in Macromedia Flash. Interesting. I actually don't remember Macromedia Flash because when I was a kid, I had horrible internet. I had like dial-up horrible internet, and I wasn't even allowed to like do any sort of online games because that would just like use up all of our data, and we had no speed. It was horrible. So I missed out on all the Flash games, like all the Newgrounds stuff and Macromedia Flash Player web game stuff. I was never into that stuff, unfortunately. What do you think about selling assets for profits? Have you experienced, and do I think it's worth it? I think that's amazing. I buy and pay for hundreds of assets. I spend a lot of money on assets. In fact, let's go through them. Here we go. Here's all the assets I own. And by the way, these are all paid assets. This does not include the free ones. Okay, I have paid money for every single one of these. I have paid money for. Okay, we're still going. So to answer your question, I think that creating and selling assets for money is an amazing idea, because there are people out there who are amazing artists, but maybe they don't have a team. So get out there and create some sprites. Like this person just drew a bunch of like human heads, and these are really nice. Now these are not sprites that like I don't think that I'm ever going to personally use these, but he drew them and they look good and they would fit into someone's game, and you can sell them for money because someone's going to pay money for it. I don't know how much he's selling this specific asset for, but the thing is, like, I bought all this in an asset. I bought like this pack as a pack of packs. Oh wow, so many. Yeah, I'm not even close to being done. This is still like the first half, I think. Are all the licenses for purchase assets very good, or should I pay attention to that when buying? You should always pay attention to it. In fact, when you go to any of these sites, or to any of these packs, you have to make sure that it actually has a license on it. So there sometimes has a license written in this more information section. Here, it says license. So it says you can use the assets on personal or commercial projects, edit or modify the assets to fit your game, credits to Elv Games. And actually, I do have Elv Games listed in my credits. It says you cannot use on training for generative AI, that makes sense. Use on crypto NFT related projects, that makes sense too. Resell these asset packs, that makes sense too. So you can't just buy this, modify it, and then sell it as something new. Claim the asset packs as yours. So as long as you follow the terms of this license, you're in good shape. Can they change the license post-purchase? Ideally, when you download the asset pack, it'll come with a document that acts as the true license that you can include with your game assets. But you are right, that's something to consider, and it would be very scummy for someone to change the license after selling it. I don't actually. So the thing is, licenses, it's so complex. I'd like to say you don't have to worry about that, but the truth is you probably do have to worry about that. I bet there are people out there that do like shady stuff like that and try to make claims that are clearly fraudulent, but all you can do is your best. You have to do your best. There's going to be shady people out there, and you have to protect yourself as best as you can. But that's the best you can do. Night in the Woods music, I love it too. I'm a big fan of Night in the Woods, or at least like I played through it and I enjoyed it a lot. And I like the art style a lot. It's very cute. Thankfully, they won't come until you have success, but still. I mean, look, we'll cross that hill when we get there, I guess. I think that they wouldn't have very much of a case. And also, by the way, if he's listing this on his... by the way, Elv Games is amazing. I'm a big fan. This developer, this creator is very, very good. I don't want to use him as an example, but let's say that they did change the license. Like, all of these URLs get backed up If you change any aspect of these pages, you can go back through and see that it was changed. So I think that if someone was trying to pull a fast one on you, you could probably find ways to prove that they did that. And really, they're selling asset packs on their website. It would be very weird to try and stir up drama like that. Patent trolling is a serious problem. It definitely is. I've heard horror stories about that, and that'd be scary. That would be scary. You need to save the original files I got with the license file. That would be ideal. But even then, like, how do you prove that that's the original file and that you didn't just include that after the fact? And how do they prove that? I don't even know, dude. It's so confusing. So confusing and complicated. I need to move this over here. Okay, how are we doing? The name of the stream was Destruction and Particle Effects, which I guess I did. I did kind of show that, but what I was going to work on was that when you hit these, they explode. And right now, it does kind of work, but it looks a little bit janky. So let's kind of work on that a little bit. Also, I want to call out that the knockback thing that it implemented is really good. It works perfect. So I think that I'm just going to go ahead and check that in. Added self recoil for player attacks. I need the exploding particles so bad. It took me, I spent last week working on that. And actually, I didn't get as much done last week just because I was a bit sick. But I did work on those particles. Have I tried GPT Codex, or have you always stuck with Claude? When GPT-5 came out, I used that for a while, but I am not convinced yet, so I stuck with Claude. I have not tried any of the other ones besides GPT-5 and Claude. And so far, Claude has been very good. It is funny that how quickly things change. Because I remember using Claude even half a year ago, and the percentage, this is the thing about AI, is that it's not always going to work. Everyone accepts that. Whenever you use an AI, there's a chance that it's going to get something wrong. The question is, what is that chance? If it was like a 50-50 chance, that's not very useful. Like, if you ask an AI a question, and it's a 50-50 chance that it's wrong, like, what even is the point of asking it anything? So, that's why, like, it has to be somewhat reliable. If the AI is correct 90% of the time, now we're talking. It still gives you, like, some level of doubt, though. 90% is enough to make you go, like, okay, I'll go with this, but I'm not quite convinced. And I would say 6 months ago, Claude was at a point where it was at, like, 80% of the time, it was producing good code. And 80% is not bad. It's pretty good. Like 4 out of 5 times, it would give me a good response. I would say that's pretty good. Today, it's like 9 out of 10 times it gives me a good response. I'm pretty impressed. For the most part, it gets done better than I could in such a short time. Not all AI is slop, especially not from Chow. I mean, slop is what you make of it. It's because it's easy. It's easy to produce slop. The reason there's so much AI slop is because it's really easy to produce. It's the same as regular. It's the same as like regular human artwork. Like, you go on DeviantArt, there is so much bad art produced by humans. And if you only look at bad, crappy art, you might come to the conclusion that humans are bad artists because all you're looking at is slop from DeviantArt, from like 9-year-olds. Like that. Imagine basing your opinions on art based on that sample. The truth is, AI is capable of producing crazy good stuff when it's in the right hands. If you use it to create slop, it's going to create slop. But if you use it skillfully and you use some human touch to like finish things off and clear up any problems, you're going to end up with really, really good stuff. A really, really good product is what I should say. How sloppy AI is depends on the dev themselves and how much they preview their code. I think that currently AI models with coding, it's changing so frequently that I don't really there's no like standard yet. I think that AI coding is so volatile. You can even I've been seeing posts about how GPT-5 codex. Am I able to use this? Someone was asking about that earlier. Who said that? I'm sorry. Someone said, "Do you use GPT codex?" Oh yeah, Ol asked, "Have you tried GPT codex, or have you always stuck with Claude?" Okay, here, yeah. I have not tried GPT-5 codex. Should I try it? I can, because all of these ones down here are the paid models, so I'm able to use these. Codex feels more for words and codes. Well, I actually don't even know what that is. So let's ask let's ask GPT-5. What is GPT-5 codex? Yeah, try it out. I've had some great experiences with it. I'm sorry. I've had some great experiences with it recently. Awesome. I'll try it out. In fact, because I've been using Claude for the past like month or so, and it's been very, very good. I'm definitely interested to see what a different model is like, to feel what the differences are. GPT-5 Codex is a specialized version of GPT-5 designed specifically for software engineering tasks like coding, debugging, refactoring, and code review. Oh, that's exactly what I want. It's like I can read my mind. Wow, that's exactly what I'm looking for. It was trained with reinforcement learning on real pull requests and real-world coding workflows. It allows it to mimic Hewing coding. I cannot read. Have you guys noticed that when I'm reading, I just can't read? Mimic Hewing code. I can't mimic human coding style for smoother team integration. I think that I need to practice reading. Genuinely, I think I have a problem reading because when I started streaming, I had a problem with stuttering, but I do stutter still, but not nearly as much as I did. When I'm reading, that stutter comes back. When I'm reading, it's like I'm back to stuttering all over again. Looking at code all day affects reading. Maybe it does. Maybe it does. You read faster in your mind than you can utter. You're right about that. I think that's definitely true. But I wish my mouth could keep up. Essentially, what I'm seeing here is that GPT-5 Codex is a shift from AI as autocomplete to AI as coding collaborator. Yeah, that is one thing, is that for a long time, AI has really been delegated to something like this, where you say self, and look, it just like autofills. It's very smart like that. So, in fact, I bet I wrote all these lines by doing this, where I literally just said this, and then this, and then... yeah, I bet that that's literally what happened. So, the evolution to, like, this AI agent phase, where it's not auto-completing, it's actually evaluating all of the different files, deciding which file needs to be updated, finding which line within the file needs to be changed, adding the relevant code that needs to be added, and then it also writes tests to verify that the output is correct, and then if there's a bug, you can copy-paste the bug into the little window here, and then it just fixes it. It's disturbingly good. Copilot has a Copilot 3D feature in the Copilot Labs that creates 3D models from 2D images. It's pretty good for prototyping. Just import into Blender, export into your desired type file. That sounds crazy. That sounds amazing. That sounds very good. This is the one thing about AI and art that I think is going to be the biggest jump in productivity. And I think it's also a mental hurdle that a lot of people are going to have to battle with. AI and art is naturally at odds with each other because humans create things. Humans create wholly original stuff, while AI is derivative. We need humans to be involved with the AI, with the art creation process. And one thing about the art creation process is when you're getting started, there's an infinite number of directions to take things. When you are getting started with, like imagine you are sitting there with a blank canvas and you're saying to yourself, okay, I need to design my main character. Where do you even start? An artist is going to use their mind and think of ideas in their mind and put them down on paper. And they're probably going to put down a lot of different ideas on paper. And then they're going to evaluate which parts of those ideas worked and which ones didn't. And then they're going to iteratively create their character from there. The thing that I think AI is going to be most helpful with is that iterative process, that brainstorming process, that part where you are trying to find the right direction. Because rather than starting with a blank canvas, you can start with vibes. You can have an AI generate 100 main characters, and you can look through all 100 of those main characters, and none of them are going to be good. None of them are going to be the final product. But one of them might have a vibe that you're looking for. It might have some article of clothing that you weren't thinking of, or maybe you might see something good from this one or something good from that one, and then you can start to like brainstorm different thoughts, and you can start to get different ideas or concepts. And AIs are getting to the point where you can like actually feed those those samples back into the model to regenerate it with different prompts. It's I don't know. Inspiration, not copying. Chatbot is a good rubber ducky, I can tell you that. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Inspiration is a feeling, but the process of creation is still what humans do. It is. There are times when, as a creator, I do feel like a machine. Inspiration isn't magic, just pulling from your own experiences of media. That's kind of what I mean, is that humans, when they draw art, they are pulling from their own inspirations. AIs are trained on human creations, but humans are also trained on human creations. It is bad when an AI creates a piece of art that mimics someone else's style, but a human does the same thing. Humans mimic each other's style. That's how art evolves. Like, there are ideas in my game that came from games before mine. In fact, all of my ideas are iterative. They're all redundant in some way or another. And AI is a very big step, but I think it is a step that's similar to that. Samsung has an AI feature to make pixel art. Tried it once, but it doesn't look the best. I've had very mixed results with pixel art. So far to this day, my game has 0 AI pixel art, to my knowledge. So this is the thing about this is another thing about AI and art. I have all of these asset packs, and I trust that these sprites were drawn by a human hand. But how do I know? How do you know for sure? What if in 10 years, the itch.io store is all pixel art generated by an AI, and you can't tell the difference? What if for years, someone behind the scene had an AI that could generate pixel art that's perfect, but that person kept it for themselves and we never knew about it? It would just look like human-made pixel art. That's another existential thing. Is that if pixel art looks good... Dude, I don't know. What if some of these packs are ripped from foreign games? You're right. I worry about that with sound effects. Bro, I'm working on Unity for 3 years, but I could not still create a decent project. Is this normal? It's totally normal. Omer, what I suggest, take a step back. You said that you were working on for 3 years. Did you finish a project in those 3 years? Because if you have been working for 3 years and you kind of just been like jumping from project to project and trying out different ideas, but nothing's really sticking, what I really want you to do is take a step back. Take a step back and simplify your first step. Because if you have not finished a game from start to finish, I think we all know where this is going. I think we all know where this is going. I think that you need to start with a much simpler game just to get a feeling for something. If you have not actually finished a project, I think you need to go and make Pong. What I suggest, you worked in Unity for 3 years. I'm sure you picked up certain details during that time. I'm sure you picked up a lot of skills during that time. And I understand that you're feeling overwhelmed because your projects aren't coming together. That makes me think that your projects are overwhelmingly large and overwhelmingly complex. I think to get yourself out of this mental funk that you're in, take a step back and make Pong. This game looks easy to make, doesn't it? And make it as simple as possible. Start with just the paddle, take it one step at a time. But what I'm suggesting you do is actually finish this. Is actually sit down and say, I'm going to finish this game. I know it's stupid and easy. I know it's just Pong. I know I feel like a dumb kid making a simple game like this, but I'm gonna do it anyway because that's what you gotta do. And if you do that, you're going to have a handle for movement, for collisions, for score, for lives, for UI, for sound effects, for rendering, for exporting, for graphics, for shaders. All of these things are concepts that you can incorporate into your Pong game. But the key thing is you have to finish it. So that's not Pong. I know it's Atari Breakout. It's a Pong equivalent. The reason why I always bring I always say Pong or Atari is because like this is my favorite example and it runs in a browser. I understand that this isn't Pong, but it's similar. You have to admit. So this is what I think everyone should start with: is if the game that you're working on is more complex than this, your game is too complicated. And my first game in Love 2D was exactly that. Was a Breakout clone. For 10 plus years, never finished one project, but not going to give up. Yeah, please don't give up. But 10 plus years, never finishing one project tells me that your projects are too big. That those projects are too big. You need to reach the finish line because by reaching the finish line, it forces you to get through a lot of the mundane tasks, like exporting your game, having game testers, trying to get it running on someone else's computer or in a browser, or making sure that the sound effects run properly on someone. Like there's a lot of details that you don't really feel like you need experience doing these things, but you don't get that experience until you finish it. You must finish what you started, never quit. That goes to an extent, yes. I think that it's important to recognize when a project is out of scope. And if it is out of scope, it needs to be rescoped so that you can finish it. Never give up, but it is important to rescope. If your projects are so big that you can't finish them even after 10 years, you need to rescope your projects so that they are finishable. Thanks for the advice. Also, you are right. Of course, I learned so many things, but still not being able to come up with a project makes me feel so bad. 26, but I feel so too old to start. You are not too old at all, dude. It is totally cool. And I think that is awesome that you're getting started with this. I really don't want you to give up. And yeah, it is really hard to overcome those initial phases. That's why I always say to start with something easy, because it's so overwhelming and it's deceptively difficult. I bet a lot of people look at this game here and they think oh, it's simple. You have a character that moves and you have a camera and you have stuff that easy. The game engine handles it all for you. And to an extent, some engines handle more than some other ones, but it is a lot of complexity just to get this window, just to get this game window here. It's a lot of work. It's crazy. That's why starting with something so small is a really, really good step. And 26 is a baby. Adele is completely right. I'm 29, and I feel so young still. I feel like I could still, if I wanted to change paths today and drop what I'm doing, stop being a game dev and go be something completely different, I feel like I could do that. I think it's amazing. You're 26, you absolutely can pick up a new skill. If you're in your 30s or 40s, you can pick up a new skill. I know people who are in their 50s who picked up an instrument for the first time and started playing music for the first time. It's Moonshire Monday again. Yep, it is. Every Monday. Have you thought of implementing a counter for how many times you've been asked what game engine I use? That'd be fun if I could implement like a bot. I should implement like a Chalcade bot that tracks that. AI fails at innovation because I just thought of Pong RPG. That's a really cool idea. I think that would be a cool idea, like a Pong roguelike where you get upgrades and stuff and it gets harder and harder. I think that'd be awesome. Love to D handles most of the basic, but everything on the canvas is hard. Yes, everything is... Game development is hard. Even if you use Game Maker, it's going to have hard aspects. Game Maker or Unity handles the part where it gets this window up and running. It gets like these physics objects in place. You can just drag stuff into the scene and things just start to move. It is nice that Game Maker can do that. It's nice that Godot can do that. But a game is more than just a character that moves around a world. A game is how objects interact with each other. There's a lot of complexity. Making this character move this object around, making this character roll and bump into stuff and hit this thing and bounce. Oh, that's why it's doing it. I was like, why am I bouncing so far back sometime? Okay, I'm going to explain this bug because this is actually really funny. Here's what was happening is whenever this yellow hitbox, the yellow hitbox is appearing in front of the player, whenever this hits a wall or something, it's going to bounce the player back like this. Okay? But what was happening is that sometimes that hitbox was hitting multiple walls. Like here, I'm going to hit multiple walls at once, and it's going to launch me back. Woo! It's because I hit this box and the anvil. I'm going to see if I can hit 3 of them at once. That'd be really funny. I bet I can. This is definitely a bug. I'm going to try and fix this after this. Okay, so let's do... Woo! It's so cool! I love that. That's really funny. Okay, but I need to fix that. So let's actually have the AI fix that because I wanted to test out GPT-5 codecs. So let's open up player attack. And actually, this is probably gonna... I don't know if this is gonna happen. There is a bug when the player attacks a wall prop. The hitbox triggers a self knockback on the player. This is functional and fine, but if an attack hits multiple walls props, the self knockback becomes additive, where the player massively knocks themselves back. And can you fix this? Oh, I have enable access to the GPT-5 codex model. Enable. I bet the language it uses is going to be a little bit different. Or like the things it says is going to be different. Because Claude Code always starts by saying... It explains in English like what it's going to do. It lists out its set of tasks, and then it explains in English like what it did. Right now, I think it's kind of odd. Wow, that was very fast. Okay, so right off the bat, the way that GPT-5 Codex handled this prompt is way different than how Claude handled this prompt. When I asked Claude to do this, look how wordy, look how talkative it got. It talked through every step of its process. It talked about which files it read. It talked about its analysis, its search. And it says, perfect, now I understand the system. And it says, based on my analysis, it talks about all its plans and all this stuff. It talks about which files it edited and why. And then it did this big summary at the end to explain why it did all these things and how it did it. Meanwhile, GPT-5 Codex was much more concise. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but it is more concise. I asked this question, and it literally just did it, and then it said, I did it. Applied a guard, so each... Oh. I'm checking that recoil resets with each hitbox instance for every attack, but only applies once per attack, even if multiple walls are struck. I'll include a brief summary to suggest the user. Well, that was fast. Let's see what the code look like. Recoil applied. I see. So it created this flag called recoil applied, and then it just checks that. So really, this prompt was a lot. Excuse me, but this prompt was a lot more simple compared to the other one. This one was just a flag set, and then that was it. So I think that the bug will be fixed now. The little drop down are reasoning parts. I see. So rather than listing it all out in the like prompt window, it has those chevroned into those little sections. I think that's good. Because I would say it does get kind of annoying when I'm using Claude, and it's like giving me a big novel of all this stuff. I tend to just like look away until it stops talking. That's actually, this is more practical in that sense. Okay, so let's make sure that this is functional. If I hit this, that behaves normally. Okay, now if I hit 2 of them, that behaves normally. Okay, it looks like the AI has fixed it. No, the model has internal reasoning to better figure out what you want, and how to do it. Oh, no, the model has internal reasoning to better figure out what you want and how to do it. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I know what you mean. Is that it didn't even need to explain in words to me. It was able to figure it out naturally. I feel like when I get excited to make a game, but I get stuck on making like player code and everything else, I can do it, but it takes forever, and then I get bored or discouraged. Any thoughts? My advice is to start with something simpler. So take a step back. It gets overwhelming. I'm totally with you. Trying to implement a character that that makes it sound like you're starting with a game like mine, where you have a character that can walk around a world. I think it's fine to start with that, but it is complicated doing this. I have to ask, have you made a game like Pong before, or is this your first game? Because if you've never made Pong before, or never made any game before, creating a game like this where you have a character with animations that walks around and there's all this complex like logic, that's a big step to jump right into. I really do think that you should start by making something a lot simpler, and then using that information and experience to like ease yourself into. You have made Pong before, okay? In that case, like it is still taking one step at a time. Where if you're going into a game with like this big picture idea, like for me, if I went into this game with this huge Zelda-like plan, I'm rambling, but what I'm trying to get at is all you can really do is try to strip back all of the features except for the bare bones. So you say it takes forever and you get discouraged. What I suggest is setting the goalpost to be closer. If you want to make a game with a character that walks around, first start by setting the goal to be, I want to have a game where I have a character that moves, and the only goal in this game is that you pick up coins. And then you create a full game where you have that character and coins and stuff. And I know that it's going to be tedious and hard and tiresome even to get that in place. But once you have that game working, then you can take it to the next step where you can iteratively grow on that and make it more and more complex step by step. I really empathize with Sharp, though, because I think a lot of people get into that same situation where they are making a game, and then at some point, the challenge sets in and the progress feels less tangible. When you start a game, especially with like a game engine like Godot or Unity, where things you can like drag stuff on and start getting things moving right away, things do slow down very fast. Things slow down very fast, even for me. If you've been watching my streams, you might notice that like between each stream, not much is changing in my game. That's because there's all this code, there's all this stuff. Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. I think Tears of the Kingdom is more fun to play, but Breath of the Wild as a complete experience, I think is better. Just because Tears of the Kingdom has some jankiness to it. I didn't like the story in Tears of the Kingdom either. Lua isn't cool by itself, but it's what the framework is called Love 2D. Yeah, Love 2D is the heavy hitter here. So let's go ahead and check this in. We're going to say fixed stacked self knockback. Allfather, hi, welcome in. Sorry I haven't been around lately. I'm gonna try getting more active this coming month. Cool. Well, I'm glad to see you in here today. Thank you. That puts it into a new perspective. I wish I could be a little bit more motivational, but what I'm getting at is, like, I really sympathize with you because I think a lot of people are in your exact situation where they get their game going, they have this idea, and you're starting to see the ball rolling, but it starts to slow down a lot because you start to encounter the bugs, you start to encounter like little issues, or you might think, okay, I'm going to implement an enemy, and then implementing one enemy turns into like a month-long endeavor, and then you look back and it's like, okay, well, I'm still right where I was a month ago with this really ugly enemy code. I haven't really made much progress, except the truth is you did make progress. You learned a lot about how to make an enemy, even if it didn't work out. It's painful. You inspired me to go deep this week learning shaders. Awesome, that's so cool. McMoonshire Dono, Allfather, thank you so much for the donation. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you. I will be putting that to good use. Old School Geek also left a donation. Thank you. Kyle, do you ever feel like your game is not unique enough? I do not feel that way at all. I know what you mean, because on the surface, it does feel like just another retro pixel art game. But in my mind, it really is so much more than that. I have so many plans for this, and the direction I'm taking things, I genuinely feel is unique and fresh. I am so excited about this game, and the ideas and what I'm doing with it is truly special. And I know it's hard for people to see that, and I know that it might sound silly to hear me say that, because, like, look at it, it's just like a pixel art game. It's nothing very special. I genuinely am so excited about that, and I do have high expectations for it. That's genuinely great. Thank you. I am excited about it, and it's a hard thing to articulate, and it's a hard thing to prove. This is a hard thing when you're an artist or a creator of any kind, is that when you have a work in progress, it is very uncomfortable showing off that work in progress. Today, I have no problem with that, because, like, I have this stream and I show off my work in progress game constantly. I am perfectly comfortable today showing off my in progress work. But it is uncomfortable because I, in my head, can see the final vision. I know what direction I want to take things, and I know that currently the game does not look good. I know that people, like, who see it on the surface can't see the same vision that I can see. And I get that. That's perfectly fine. Because it's the same with me seeing other people's projects. Work in progress in music especially. Oh, I totally feel that. To be real, you're the only streamer I watch. You're awesome, man. Thank you. Oh, that's amazing to hear. I appreciate you saying that. I'm gonna get some chocolate milk real quick. That sounds amazing. Some chocolate milk right now. That sounds nice. I'm trying to think, what other stuff can I work on? I think that what I want to work on too is when you hit these, I want there to be more of an impact effect. And also, the way that those particles explode off is really dumb. So let's try a few things. I'm trying to find the effect that I want to use here. So here's my Explorer. By the way, someone in one of my comments was talking about, or so I always complain about how tiny Windows Explorer is. And someone in the comments was saying I should use the preview. Unfortunately, the preview is also small. What I'm looking for now is I have impact. Here, Spark. Yeah, look, you can't zoom in the preview. It's so little. So frustrating. I think I need to find, if anyone knows, by the way, I show files in my Windows Explorer on stream all the time, but they are tiny. Look how little these are. It's because it's pixel art. Like this is the file we're talking about. It's very small pixel art, but the preview image is so tiny I can't see what it is, and the text is so tiny I can't even read it. And you guys probably can't read it either. It's so small. Try minimizing Finder. There isn't. I can't do it. There's. Slightly better. But what I think I want to do is I think I want to find a different program altogether that's different from Windows Explorer. I'm working on image GUI clone and Pure Lua for Love2D. Awesome, that sounds cool. You know more with Mac. I feel ya. Windows has its quirks, but believe me, Mac has its quirks too. Because by the way, this stream is brought to you is running on a Mac. I'm streaming from Windows right now, but the camera that you are seeing me is connected to my Mac, so the Mac is the one that's filming the IRL footage. It's recording the IRL footage, it's sending it over to my Windows PC, and then I'm streaming from my Windows PC. But anyway, the reason I brought this up is because I wanted to use this spark effect right here. So I'm going to go over to effect, and we need to implement this spark effect. I don't have it yet. We're going to copy this. So the way effects work is every effect is defined just right up here at the top, and you just give it all these different properties. So spark, effects, spark. This is impact, spark, and then how many frames is it? It is 3 frames. 3 frames of the animation. And then we'll say frame time. I think that's okay. That's pretty fast. Might actually make it a little bit slower than that. I'll say 0.06. Shouldn't there be an indicator that the prop took damage since it breaks? Yes, definitely. We could work on that too. Margin equals -3. I don't think I want margin. Hitbox, there's no hitbox on this, so that's it. Whoop. Okay, so I have this effect. Now I can spawn, and I'm gonna ask the AI to do this. When a player attack collides with a wall or a prop, I want you to spawn this spark effect at the at an appropriate impact point. Why am I using AI? It's fun. It's interesting. Because I think that it's going to be able to do it faster than I could do it. It sucks that there's no way to make the file explorer bigger. Sometimes I cheat by doing this, where I do, let's see, Windows Plus. If you do Windows Plus, you can open up the magnifier, and then you can zoom in like this. So now I can see, whoa, that looks really weird. Look, it's like upscaling the pixel art and adding like straight lines to it. That's really strange. Am I a vibe coder? I wouldn't say I'm a vibe coder, no. I would say I'm a hybrid coder. And control a mouse wheel. That doesn't actually zoom in. It doesn't zoom in the images. It doesn't zoom in the text either. It just kind of does this. It's unfortunate. Yeah, vibe coding is certainly a term that has a reputation. But the truth is, right now, the AI is doing that task that I asked it to do, while I'm here chatting with the chat and able to talk about this other stuff. And then now I can just open this back up, and we can see that I made all the changes. So I think that there is some value to be had here. The thing is, a lot of people are going to be reliant on the AI, and they're not going to understand the code that's being produced. And AIs do still make mistakes. So if you don't know what those mistakes are, if you're not familiar with coding as a practice, it's going to be very hard to identify those mistakes, and it's going to be hard to maintain a clean code base when you're super reliant on it. So It says give it a swing in game to confirm. So we'll go ahead and keep that. Let's see all the stuff that it did. This is fine. I'm gonna ask it to change this later because like this is wall is prop. This is kind of hacky. The truth is there's going to be a big list of different tags that we have to account for. I like coding with AI. Makes me feel like I have my own intern. That's really what it is that if you explain very clearly in words, it can do things really well. So let's see what this code looks like. Spawn spark effect at impact point for solid surfaces. So edge x, edge red, impactor.x, surface x, get position, collider.get position, gets position. So it's getting this calculation it's running, I don't quite like this. I don't quite like this. It did what I asked it to. I asked it to put it at the impact point, but I don't think that's what I want it to do. Let's see what it looks like when I test it. Okay, so when I hit this anvil, wow. That looks awesome. Is tags in base love 2D Lua? No, that's something I invented. That looks really good. At points, I need to make sure that I set this up right. I still don't like how it calculated it, because I think it's trying to use the dimensions of the collider. Oh, that's actually not bad, though. I've seen it. Roblox coding was cool. You made it yourself. Oh, also, why is this not like knocking back? That's kind of weird. That knocks back. I'm trying to figure out how I want to change the positioning of this spark, because like it looks weird when I hit it like that. That's when it looks weird, but I think that's what it has to be. Let's look at what the colliders look like when I turn that on. Let's go to debug and turn colliders and hitboxes on. I present velocity. That's actually hilarious. I love that idea. I love that idea. Oh man. Okay. I wonder if I can explain this in a different way. Shouldn't the effect be on the item you're hitting instead of the hit animation? That's exactly what was going through my mind as well. And that's what I was trying to kind of isolate is what Benjolio, I hope I said that right, has said is that, look, when the hitbox hits the corner, it spawns the spark in a very weird spot. It spawns the spark kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Even though the collision happens here, it spawns the spark out here towards the tip of like the punch. So let's see if it can modify this. Can you modify the positioning logic for the spark? Currently, it seems to spawn at the tip of the attack hitbox. However, it would look better if the position was skewed closer to the what do I say? The object being attacked. I guess that's not a good way of phrasing it. However, look, but the spark should appear more closely to the object being struck. That's a better way to phrase it. I just got here. I'm not sure if you're new or experienced coder. If you are new, then don't use ChatGPT. You're going to learn that way. I am a very experienced coder. I agree with you. is that if you are a new coder and you are trying to learn how to code, using a tool like ChatGPT to solve problems for you, you are robbing yourself of the experience of learning. Everything that you want to learn comes from overcoming challenges. And the biggest downside of using an AI like this is that it solves challenges for you, and therefore you are not gaining experience. You can think of it like an RPG. You are not gaining EXP if you're using if you don't get EXP if you use ChatGPT, so to speak. But sometimes, if you know what you're doing with the AI, it can lead to you being more productive. But that productivity comes with the cost of not gaining the experience of doing it. It's the same as if you had an employee. If I had an employee that could code for me, and I asked that employee to do some coding for me, the benefit is that the coding gets done automatically. But the downside is that since I'm not coding myself, I'm not learning anything. I'm not gaining any experience from that process. So you have to treat it that way. If you want to learn and get better, you can't use this tool to do things for you. But if you are using this tool in collaboration with your own manual processes so that you can speed things up, that's when you're going to see some very, very productive people, some productive developers. Well, as real AI is taking over, I think that the writing is on the wall at this point. Offset to the edge of the hitbox, not the object itself. Let's see what it did. Move the spark placement towards the struck surface. See, the thing is, I think that it's going to be too complex actually finding the collision point, where just eyeballing it is going to end up looking better for the most part. So that looks good. It actually got it opposite. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was playing the game on my other monitor. Was I just like playing the game on the other monitor and you guys were just like watching me? That was so weird. I'm sorry about that. Okay, this is what the code did. Okay, it looks like it made it worse. It almost doesn't even look like the hitbox is hitting anything. It's really strange. So that did not work. That made it worse. Specifically, when the... I'm going to try and explain it in a very weird way. Here is my example. The prop is a rectangle, and the attack is a circle. The circle barely collides with the corner of the rectangle, and this causes the tip of the circle to be far from where the rectangle actually is. Help! I love how you look so cheerful and joyful on my streams. I like to be. I like talking, and you guys give me a lot to talk about. Also, this is my favorite topic. All the things that we're talking about game development and pixel art and AI. It's like my favorite things in the world. I'm new to Godot. Made my first movement script in Godot yesterday. Awesome, that's cool to hear. How many hours a week do I contribute to my game dev in my day-to-day? I do treat it like a full-time job. I would say I'm at least at my desk working on something for 6 hours a day, but I'm also up around my apartment, like brainstorming and pacing, or outside for a walk and thinking, and I have my notebooks and I have my iPad, and I have lots of aspects of the game that goes beyond just sitting at the desk and working. But yeah, I do work on it every day. So this is actually taking a hot second. Let's see what it's able to do. Actually, it looks like it's reading into physics.lua to get information on how physics, shapes, and bodies are organized. So far, GPT-5 Codex has been fine, but I am kind of a fan of how verbose Claude Code is, because it would be nice if it could like put into words exactly what it's thinking about. I'm pretty sure it's just researching what the physics objects are organized like and how you can get the details on its shapes. Yeah, calculating precise spark contact points. I don't know if I want it to be precise though, because this is the thing, is that if it collides with multiple objects, I think, well, let's see what it did. Let's see what it did. Rework spark placement to use precise ray AABB intersection so the impact effect hugs the struck surface. How complex is this? Oh my god! That's too much. Okay, I think that after this, if this doesn't look good, I think I'm just going to delete all of this and ask it to just put it at the tip of the circle, because this is overkill. Okay. Okay, that looks fine. Hey! Okay, that looks better. It's not perfect. Yeah, it's not perfect. I think I'm going to ask it to just get rid of all this. Did it make any other changes? No. All of this calculation logic is far too complex for this task. Please remove all of this and simply place the spark at the tip of the attacking hitbox. I'll say roughly. I watched the Juniper Dev video yesterday. You and all the others had amazing advice. Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm a really big fan of that video. She did amazing with it. Juniper has an amazing script writing style, and her editing is very, very good. She puts a lot of effort into her videos. That's something that I am kind of experiencing, is that, like, I see her videos, and she does such a good job with them, and I think to myself, I could make a video like that, but it takes so much time and effort. She is a trooper. It really, really turned out amazing. Because I would love to get back into a habit of producing videos of that quality more regularly. It's just the time investment to make it look that nice and that good. It's good. It's a lot of work. Yeah, she has a really good channel. Okay, that's a lot more simple. We're gonna save this and try this. Let's see how that is. GPT-5 Codex thinks like a person, but OpenAI hides its reasoning so you see only summary of its thinking. That's maybe what bothers you. Sorry for my English. That makes sense to me. I think that it's just something I have to get used to. And also, it's still a preview like model. I'm sure they're going to be making tweaks to it. I'm all in favor of having another model to choose from. Because I was talking earlier about how AI makes mistakes. And the AIs that I use to help with this game sometimes, it makes mistakes all the time. I shouldn't say all the time, but it makes mistakes on a somewhat regular basis. I was talking, at the start of the stream, I said, like, maybe 6 months ago, when I used Claude, it would get my responses maybe like 4 out of 5 times correct. And then 20% of the time, it would just be like, what were you even thinking? And today, Claude, I feel like it's at like 9 out of 10. It's pretty good. But there are still times when it screws up and it can't figure out a problem. And it would be nice in that situation to switch over to a different model like this that's more trained on something like debugging and try that one instead. Because I bet that the different models have different benefits and different different, I'm trying to say, strengths is what I was trying to think of. Why do I make trees in every other graphic an object and not design it on the map? You never replied to this question. That's a good question. So the reason why is because when it's a tile in the map, in my game, that means it is just visual. If something is a tile, it strictly means it is there only for show. So all of these tiles that we see here, this does not impact gameplay in any capacity whatsoever. If I turned off the tiles, the game would play exactly the same, except the tiles would be invisible. So this is purely an aesthetic thing. That's the purpose of tiles, is for visuals and aesthetics. And trees are interactable entities. Same with, like, the, I was showing, like, the anvil or the kiln, or all of these objects. These are not tiles because these are created by the engine. I coded these objects and the engine created them. Meanwhile, these are tiles, and these are just strictly images that are being placed into this like tile editor. What about the wall and other tiles? That's a good point. So the way that the walls work is I am literally drawing in the wall objects over top of everything. And it's the same with the water. So let me turn off everything except for the water. So you can see that the water, and again, it's tiny because Windows, but there's this water layer, and it's really hard to see, but over top of these water tiles, I drew water objects. And this water object is meant to clarify to the engine where the water is. Because again, the tiles are purely aesthetic. They do not impact gameplay at all. The only thing that impacts gameplay is objects, because the objects translate to like game engine mechanics. Something I could do is program it so that tiles of this type always result in a wall created over top of it. I could programmatically analyze the tiles, and then the program could decide where to place the walls automatically. But currently I don't do that. Currently I manually, for the level walls, draw in the walls like manually like this. And that's how every level is created. But then why not make water and walls objects like the anvil in the first place? It's a balance. It's a balance because when you're designing a level and your level editor exists outside of the engine, which in my case it does, I'm using tiled, it's outside of the engine. Therefore, the engine-specific stuff can't be seen in the level editor. So the reason why I don't make everything an object is because then I wouldn't be able to see. I wouldn't be able to see anything. The tiles are the aesthetic part. The objects are just data. So the tiles are also for my benefit, because the tiles show me what the level looks like, and the objects show the engine what the level looks like. That's the truth, is that the tiles are for my human eyes, and the objects are for the computer's eyes, because the computer needs to know where to spawn all these grass particles and the computer needs to know where the trees go. When might the next demo come? I am so sorry, I don't know. I'm so sorry. I wish I knew. But that all being said, I do think that it would be in my best interest to come up with a hybrid solution where the engine is able to see, oh, there are water tiles here. Let's spawn a water object over top of that spot. That seems reasonable. That way I wouldn't have to manually go into every level and place a water object over top of every water spot. Theoretical date? I would love to have a playable demo out by the end of the year, like January 31st, but I don't know. It's just not even, I don't even know. I feel like I'm making negative progress because I'm just reworking the code, but I keep always saying, though, that I'm so optimistic about this game, so optimistic about the future of this project. Even though progress is so slow, I have so much confidence that it's going to be good. I'm so excited about it. Is this my own engine? No. It's my own framework. The framework is Love2D. So Love2D is a framework, which is like a lightweight set of coding tools. I use a bunch of Love2D functions in this code, and Love2D provides like the fundamental processes for the game. Love2D is the framework that creates this window here. It's the one that's rendering all these graphics. But when you say engine, that tends to include like the behaviors of things. Engine tends to include things like how things interact or the speed, how things feel in the universe. So the engine is sort of like my own creation through Love2D, but the engine is Love2D. Love2D is what's providing the fundamental like graphics processing, but my code provided a lot of the like initialization and how sprites are rendered, like the Z ordering rendering. That's me doing that. So you could say that's an engine level stuff. In fact, in my code, I actually have a whole folder dedicated to engine. All of this stuff, all of these files here are files that I consider to be engine level features. Things like the collisions, the cursor, drawing graphics, the effects. This is unfinished. Event is not anything yet. I haven't even done this yet. Actually, it's not. It is finished. This is how you quit the game. But these are all engine level features that make the game run. And these are all code files that I wrote myself. So, is the engine Love2D? Or is the engine like what I wrote myself? It's a hybrid. Like, Love2D is the underlying like C++ based exe that runs the project. But in terms of like fundamental game engine processes, I think that I had a very, very big hand in making all of this stuff run. Do I ever suffer from imposter syndrome? Definitely when I graduated from college, I definitely did, because when you get hired for a job, nobody goes into a job knowing how to do things. So the answer is yes, I definitely have. Today, I don't really feel that way because I just have confidence in what I'm doing. I have confidence that what I'm doing is good and that I'll get there eventually. I have my own internal validation, and that pushes me forward. But at the same time, I'm very lucky to have like a community. You guys help me. You guys help me get over any sort of lack of confidence, or if I did ever have imposter syndrome, you guys are really, really helpful with getting me through that. But imposter syndrome is super, super common. In fact, I would say that if you are starting a new job, even if it's not your first job, you're going to feel inadequate because everyone else there has been doing the job for a long time and you're brand new. Even if you've been doing a similar job, it's not the same one. It's different stuff. Like when I started at Microsoft, I definitely felt it when I started at Microsoft. Because when I started at Microsoft, I was doing web development, but prior to that, I was doing like embedded C++ code, or like embedded, I don't remember what it was. It was like embedded code. And it was such a big jump. It was such a big change in my style and in the stuff that I was working on that I definitely felt inadequate and I felt like an imposter. But I also recognize that that's just normal. Whenever you start a job, everyone doesn't know what they're doing. No one does. And I think that it's important to recognize that it is just a feeling. I followed your tutorials you made a long time ago. They were super good to start learning Left2D and Lua. Awesome, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, I still look back on those, and they're still good. Like I go back and double check that they're still up to date. Left2D is a program that provides a window that basic functions all the games what you make. Yeah, essentially. Sorry, I had trouble reading that, but yeah, Love2D provides like the fundamental window that everything runs through. It provides the graphics processing. It provides the input, interacting with the operating system. Lots of really complex fundamental things that all games need. And I'm just adding on to that. What programming languages do I know? Actually, kind of off topic. That's not off topic. I started with if you count Game Maker, I started with like the Game Maker stuff, and then in high school I took a Visual Basic class. Then also in high school was Java. College was Java for the first year, and then C++ for the rest. I took a web dev course in college as well, but then I was also a web developer at Microsoft. That was like HTML and CSS, and it was the Microsoft tech stack, so like .NET and TypeScript was the big one. And then now I'm on like game development stuff like Lua, and I had a Python job as well. So it's a big variety. The thing is, once you learn once you learn one programming language, learning another one is a lot easier. I assume it's a lot like real languages. Oh, so you have a lot of experience. Yeah, I have a degree in CS, and I worked as a software developer before doing game development full time. So I do have a lot of development experience. So it just comes with time. The thing about coding languages is I see a lot of, especially newcomers, get hung up on like, oh, which one should I focus on? Which coding language do I need to learn? Which one is going to get me a job? To me, I don't see it that way. In fact, when I got my job at Microsoft, I didn't know any of the languages that they were asking for. They said that they worked with .NET and TypeScript, and I'm like, I'd never done that. And they're like, that's fine. So I did my interview at Microsoft in Java. They do not use Java at Microsoft. They use .NET. It's a better version. They use C#. It's like a better version of Java, or like I shouldn't say better. It's a different, more evolved version of Java. So it is ironic that I interviewed for Microsoft using Java, but that's just because programming languages are not that different from each other. As long as you can communicate the architecture and the software fundamentals, it doesn't really matter what the language is. They're all kind of derivative of each other in some way or another. No, to some extent. Like an object-oriented programming language is definitely gonna have some differences to something that is not object-oriented programming, but at the same time, as someone who is well-versed in like Lua will be able to read any coding language. It's just you need to figure out what the differences are. Is this in Python? No, this is in Lua, but you bring up a very good point that Lua and Python are very similar. They look similar, and they are both interpreted languages, so they have a very similar fundamental structure. Even Lua and C++ has a few similarities. Yes, they do. There's a lot of syntax differences between these languages. But like even this, what I'm looking at right here, this function, like how I have this end and this function keyword, how I have if, then, sure, C++ would do it differently. C++ would use like curly braces. They wouldn't use this then. They wouldn't use not. They would say exclamation point mix, and then they would say curly brace here, and then end curly brace here. And then don't forget about your semicolon. Also, I don't think that you can do single line sections like this. Also, you need parentheses around the conditional in C++ if you want this to work properly. And then we need to make sure it's on multiple lines. So this is what C++ looks like compared to Lua. But does this really look that much different? It does. It does, but it's not that much different. You can still see the same bones. You can still see the same bones. What games do I play? I play mostly Nintendo games, or really I play games as they come out, because these days I'm so picky with games that I basically only play games when I think that something new and fresh and big has come out. So recently I've had a lot of options. I played Silksong when that came out. I played Hades 2 just recently. I loved Hades 2 a lot. And I liked Silksong, but Silksong was really tedious at times, so I play indies as a big one. And then after that I played Pokemon Legends ZA. I wouldn't say that's a must play, but I'm a Pokemon fan, so I played it. Why aren't I working in assembly though? Oh my gosh, because I have some self-respect. I took a computer architecture class in college, and we had to do assembly coding, and that was pretty tough. It was pretty tough. I see some videos on my channel that were about mono game development. What made you switch to Love2D? That's a good question. So mono game is really good too. I used them both for a while, but I ended up sticking with Love2D permanently just because it is less of a hassle to work with. If you have used mono game, you will be aware of how much overhead code there is. You typically use Visual Studio, which is a big, large, bloated program, and you have to use a lot of external dependencies via NuGet, and then the assets have to be converted into bytecode before execution. So the way I'm loading all these assets in here right now through sprites, where I'm just providing the path, it's a lot more complex in monogame and a lot more annoying because they have the monogame content pipeline. And C++ as a language, I do like. Actually, I probably like C++ equally to Lua, so that's kind of a null point. But long story short, it just came down to I enjoyed using Love2D more because of the less overhead. It is quicker to put things together in Love2D. Here, to put it in perspective, in Love2D, the only thing you need to run a Love2D game is one file, main.lua. If you have a main.lua, you can drag your project folder onto Love2D and run it, and it'll run. Monogame is not like that at all. Monogame has dozens of prerequisite files that need to be in your game project alongside your main.lua just for the game to even run. And it is, I'm not saying that's definitely more of a hassle, but the positives are probably in terms of performance, and it's probably in terms of what platforms it can support, because monogame can export to consoles if you have the right to. And I think the content pipeline process where it converts assets into bytecode, I think that is a performance boost. I think that the way that monogame handles assets is more performant than Love2D because of that conversion. But because of that conversion, it's more annoying to work with. So what do? That's all it came down to. I'm taking a computer organization code as we speak. We're using MIPS assembler. Not as bad as I expected, though. Awesome. That's so cool to see. I think Wolf's still here. Wolf, is MIPS the name of the bunny in Mario 64? Is it based off the same one? Because I think that it was. Have I ever used Unity, Roblox Studio, or Godot? I haven't used Roblox Studio yet. I really should, because a lot of people talk about it, and I bet today Roblox Studio to make games is probably very robust, and it uses Lua. Like, if you knew how to use Lua, you would be able to use Roblox Studio or Love2D in a similar fashion. And yes, it's named after that. That's really, really cool. I learned that from you, actually, because you had the rabbit on your stream. So let's see. I think that... What all did I change? I need to undo some of these changes because I made some, like, weird... I need to check in this Spark. Okay. Hit Spark. Getting ready for work. Thank you for saying that, Rescue Squad. What did that say? The following files and save changes. Oh, what did I do? Oh, I don't want to save any of these. That was me changing Lua to C++. I'm thinking of trying out Love 2D, maybe trying Godot. Monogame has its shortcomings. They all have their pros and cons. Dead Hunter, my recommendation is, instead of thinking about trying out Love 2D, just download it. Download it and follow some online tutorials and see what it's like. And then download Godot and then follow some online tutorials and see what it's like. And as you try them out, because they're all free, as you try them out, something might click with you at some point. Maybe while you're working with Monogame, something will click, or maybe while you're working with Godot, something will click. And when that happens, it'll probably be really exciting and you'll start to work on stuff. That's what I think you should do. But we have officially passed the 2-hour mark, I think, and I think that I am ready to call it quits for the day. Do the simplest Hello World program in each platform. Basically, yeah, because then you can at least see what the end-to-end process is like. It does help. It does help. But I'm going to call it quits for the day. Thank you all so much for being here. It was a very, very good stream. I appreciate all your support and all the folks being here. It was a really, really good time. All the people like Ole, Oren, Brick, Salem, Reese, Wolf, The Real Danny, Rescue Squad, Culp, Dead Hunter, Old School Geek, and there's a lot more folks. Harish, Shy Guy Bros, Tomek. Thank you so much for being here, Future 34. I will be back next week for yet another Moonshire Monday, and I will see you all then. Nilophobia, hi Kyle, I'm trying to stream a demo, and I think one of the items keeps freezing the game. Yeah, is it the fan? Yeah, that one causes the game to crash. But that's fixed in the newer version. I will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.